You wake up with an urgent problem. Your stomach is making strange noises and you need a toilet immediately. There's just one tiny issue. It's 40,000 years ago. There are no bathrooms, no toilet paper, no plumbing. And picking the wrong bush could end with a wolf staring back at you. Welcome to prehistoric life, where even going to the toilet could become a survival challenge. As awkward as this sounds, every human who has ever lived had to solve exactly the same problem. The difference is that our ancestors had no manuals, no sewage systems, and definitely no scented toilet rolls. Yet somehow they managed for hundreds of thousands of years without turning their camps into disgusting, disease-filled disasters. The secret begins with one simple habit: don't go where you eat. Hunter-gatherers were constantly moving. Their camps were small, usually made up of a few families, and clean water was incredibly valuable. Archaeologists and anthropologists believe people deliberately walked away from sleeping areas before relieving themselves. They may not have understood bacteria or viruses, but through generations of observation, they learned that clean camps meant healthier people. Imagine a stickman quietly sneaking away from camp, hoping nobody follows him. He finally finds the perfect spot, only to discover a family of wild boars had exactly the same idea. Suddenly, this peaceful bathroom break becomes a negotiation with nature. Choosing the right location mattered more than you might think. Waste left too close to camp could attract flies, scavengers, and predators. It could also contaminate nearby water sources. Ancient humans depended on rivers and streams for drinking, cooking, and cleaning, so polluting them could threaten the entire group. This wasn't environmental activism, it was survival. Evidence from prehistoric camps suggests that living spaces were often surprisingly organized. Areas for sleeping, making tools, preparing food, and disposing of waste were separated whenever possible. Even without cities or permanent homes, people created order because disorder had consequences. Of course, another problem quickly appeared. There was no toilet paper. So, what did they use? The answer depended entirely on where they lived. Soft leaves were an obvious choice in forests. Dry grass could work in open plains. Moss was surprisingly comfortable in colder regions. Smooth stones, handfuls of snow, sand, or even water may have been used in different environments. Many modern hunter-gatherer societies have traditionally used similar natural materials, giving scientists valuable clues about ancient practices. Our poor stickman proudly grabs the biggest leaf he can find, only to realize moments later that it belongs to a plant covered in tiny stinging hairs. Congratulations. Today somehow just became worse. Finding safe materials required experience. Children likely learned from older members of the group which plants were harmless and which should never be touched. Survival wasn't only about hunting mammoths. Sometimes it was about knowing the difference between a comfortable leaf and a painfully unforgettable mistake. Then there was the weather. Imagine several days of heavy rain. The ground becomes muddy, streams overflow, and nearly every dry spot disappears. Going to the toilet now means slipping through wet grass while trying not to fall face first into a puddle. Even afterwards, staying clean becomes much harder because everything around you is soaked. Winter created different challenges. Snow could hide dangerous holes, frozen ground made digging impossible, and removing too many layers of animal skins exposed you to freezing temperatures. A task that takes 2 minutes today might have become an uncomfortable expedition. As human groups slowly began settling in one place around 12,000 years ago, everything changed. Permanent villages brought larger populations. More people meant more waste. The old solution of simply walking farther away no longer worked forever. Archaeological discoveries from early farming settlements show evidence of designated waste areas and refuse pits placed away from homes. These weren't luxury bathrooms. They were practical solutions to an increasingly complicated problem. One of the earliest known examples of toilet-like structures appeared thousands of years later in ancient settlements where people began building drainage channels beneath buildings. Civilizations such as those in Mesopotamia and the Indus Valley eventually developed remarkably sophisticated sanitation systems, proving that one of humanity's greatest engineering achievements began with a very ordinary daily need. Ironically, toilets are among the oldest technologies that everyone depends on, but almost nobody likes talking about. Scientists also study ancient waste for another surprising reason. Fossilized human feces, known as coprolites, are archaeological treasure chests. They contain pollen, seeds, parasites, fish bones, and microscopic remains of ancient meals. By analyzing them, researchers can reconstruct diets, diseases, migration patterns, and even seasonal changes from thousands of years ago. Imagine spending years earning a PhD only to become the world's leading expert in prehistoric poop. Not exactly what most children dream about, but incredibly useful for science. Those tiny remains reveal enormous stories. They show what people hunted, what plants they gathered, when agriculture spread, and how diseases evolved alongside human societies. Good sanitation also influenced survival more than most people realize. Communities that kept waste away from food and drinking water reduced the spread of dangerous parasites and infections. Although prehistoric humans didn't understand microbes, natural selection rewarded behaviors that protected entire groups. In many ways, hygiene became another survival skill, just like making fire or crafting stone tools. So, how did humans go to the toilet before toilets existed? They relied on experience, observation, and adaptation. They chose locations carefully, used whatever natural materials their environment provided, kept waste away from camp whenever possible, and gradually invented better solutions as societies became larger and more permanent. It wasn't glamorous, it wasn't comfortable, and it definitely wasn't scented. But it worked well enough to help our ancestors survive long before plumbing, flush toilets, or modern sanitation ever existed. The next time you absent-mindedly press a flush button and walk away, remember that you're using the result of thousands of years of human innovation. Because even the greatest achievements in civilization began with one surprisingly universal problem. Sometimes history isn't written by kings or warriors. Sometimes it's buried in the most unexpected places.